I'm really lucky that my friend Congo works as my video editor, not only because he's good at what he does, it's also because he has excellent visual and spatial intelligence. He just really is good at breaking down film. I would argue that in some ways he's probably better than me at critiquing movies and stuff like that, especially when it comes to just noticing the small details. This is why every time an episode of Andor ended, if I had the time, I would sit down with him and kind of pick his brain a little bit. However, after episode 10 of Andor Season 2, Make It Stop, Congo and I had a really interesting discussion about the confrontation between Dedra and Luthen. During the scene, Congo was focused in on Luthen's knife, the Nautolan Bleeder, which makes sense. He's really into knives. But what he thought was happening in that scene was Luthen was trying to frame Dedra by getting her prints all over the weapon before stabbing himself with it. This is why we get that close-up of her hands all over it. This is why I enjoy talking to Congo. He always gives me a different way to view these scenes. And when you really think about it, what Dedra's doing here is really idiotic. Placing herself in this situation up close next to Luthen, this dangerous rebel mastermind. He probably had a dozen different ways to kill her. I wouldn't be surprised if he had claymores hiding in, some of the foundations of some of those display cases he had. But I guess this is supposed to be her finale, right? Now, this is the moment where she captures the bad guys she's been chasing this entire show. She's obviously blinded by her ambition, by this burning desire to prove herself right. The irony of it all is Dedra was right. She was right all along. It was Luthen. It was the Axis network that was the most dangerous entity of them all. And she was actually very close to securing a win that the Empire desperately needed at this time. But unfortunately, Dedra Meero's upbringing in the Kinderblocks and then in the Imperial system really didn't give her the tools necessary to properly do her job. In the first season of Andor, I remember noticing a similarity between Dedra Meero and Cyril Karn. Now, despite being foot soldiers in an authoritarian state, both of these individuals managed to be very individualistic in their own ways. For Cyril, it was his uniform, the pipings, the trim, and the pockets. And for Dedra, it was something a bit more serious, skirting the rules and finding out ways around the bureaucracy so she can get what she wants. It's kind of hard to understand Dedra as a character because in real life, we oftentimes don't see people like this at all. An individual who loses her parents at a young age is then told, I'm assuming lies or just indoctrinated to think that she didn't need her parents, all she needs was the state. But of course, the state doesn't do nearly as good of a job as raising your child as your parents can, especially if it's the Empire. You can forget about nurture, compassion, and love and replace it with words like obedience and loyalty to Emperor Palpatine. Dedra Meero grew up in this environment where the Empire defined everything in her life from when she gets to wake up to what she'll wear. And I guarantee you it was not easy for her, but some people are strong, and Dedra is incredibly strong as a human being. And strong people, they can adapt and kind of adjust to even the most craziest circumstances.
We had everything we needed.
Except a mother's love.
We didn't know what we were missing.
It's actually sad when I see Dedra say this. It's like Stockholm Syndrome, but it's her entire childhood. I'm actually reminded of the story of the Chinese Premier Xi Jinping. You see, when he was a child, his father was an important founding member of the revolution. But during the chaotic Cultural Revolution, he was accused of treason and subjected to humiliation, torture, and imprisonment. Xi Jinping watched as his family was destroyed by the Red Guard. He was personally enrolled into the incredibly brutal down-to-the-countryside movement, where the Communist Party just took people from the cities and enrolled them into kind of like agrarian work camps in rural areas. Xi Jinping would live like this for most of his teenage years. So what happened to Xi Jinping? Well, a very similar thing that happened to a lot of the senior communist leadership, to a lot of ordinary Chinese people, including some people in my own family. Xi Jinping experienced great trauma because of the Chinese Communist Party. That much is clear. But instead of this making him hate the CCP, Xi became even more loyal and came to believe that having a strong central government is critical to prevent this type of chaos from ever happening again. A lot of people in China think this way. They are terrified of democracy for this reason. A lot of Russians are the same way because of the chaos they experienced during the perestroika period. And so in these countries, you have a large group of people who are traumatized, and instead of being afraid of authoritarian leaders, they're afraid of democracy. They're afraid of the masses, their own people. And this is exactly what happened to Dedra Meero, I believe. The trauma has made her more loyal to the Empire, not less. Something really awful happens to children when they aren't exposed to love and affection at a very young age. We actually need attachments at those ages, whether a Jedi tells you it's okay or not. And that's because when we're a tiny little baby, we need unconditional love to make us feel safe, like we're in the womb again. The safety lowers our stress levels. It allows us to function at a higher state where we can learn and interact with our surroundings. Stress actually closes that all down. It makes us dumber. It makes us kind of retreat internally, where we can be protected. Just yelling around your newborn or being overly angry all the time around very young babies can have a pretty negative effect on your child's development. When you don't have meaningful and warm connections as a child like Dedra does, your ability to regulate your emotions and deal with them is severely lacking. In young boys, that usually leads to acting out. I think Dedra actually has a lot of control, and I think the Imperial system also wouldn't let her act out, and so the way she deals with things is just as bad. She just kind of pushes down all the emotions and tries to store them away so she doesn't have to deal with them. This actually leads to everyone thinking that she's getting choked by Darth Vader in the scene. Nah, man, she's just choking herself because she can't handle her emotions. Growing up without parents or loving people interacting with you can also limit your understanding of emotions in others, something that Dedra Meero clearly exhibits. She's excellent at analysis. She does a great job at connecting the dots. She figured out the whole Axis network thing without much intelligence at all. But when it comes to reading crowds, when it comes to reading entire planets of people, or just one individual, Dedra is found sorely lacking, which is why Ferrix was such a nightmare, which is why Partagaz sent a specialist for Gorman, which is why her arrest against Luthen was also botched. She understands Luthen's network, how they operate, what they're trying to do, but she does not understand the individuals fighting in the rebellion at all. Now, when a person grows up without love, without affection, it doesn't mean that they don't still seek it. They do. They just don't understand what they're missing, and they sort of act out in different ways looking for approval. And that's because we are hardwired to seek love. We are hardwired to develop these bonds with other people because they help us survive and flourish. We are a very social species. And we all need a safe place both physically and mentally to grow and develop as a child. This includes Dedra. But instead of having love, what she has is praise from the Empire, a reward for being a good Imperial. It literally is the only positive reinforcement she gets to experience as a child. She begins to understand that the only way she can fill this empty hole inside of herself is by doing things to please the Empire. Her identity and everything positive in her life merges with the Empire, and she also adopts the values of the Empire, which are order, control, and gaining status. But here's one thing, the Imperial system is not fair. It was never really designed to be fair. The rules, the discipline were always designed for the people below, not for the people at the top. Whether it was the Imperial Academy system or just the Imperial Navy's officer corps, the people who made it in the Empire were usually the most vicious, social climbing backstabbers you've ever seen. Individuals who broke the rules and were good at hiding it, until they weren't anymore. For Dedra to have survived the Kinderblocks and make it to where she is now, she probably had to do things to survive. She calls herself a scavenger, but I'm pretty sure she also broke the rules in order to win. There's this moment in the first season where Dedra realizes that in the ISB she can also bend the rules as long as the results are good. It's when she answers Major Partagaz's question about what the ISB does. She gives the by-the-book answer to Partagaz, who throws away the book immediately.
We are healthcare providers. We treat sickness. We identify symptoms. We locate germs, whether they arise from within or have come from the outside.
It was after this moment Dedra starts really testing the waters by encroaching into Supervisor Blevins' territory, looking for data. This is a battle that she really fought well against Blevin. Even Major Partagaz recognized her skill and actually gives her some good advice along the way.
Supervisor Meero, do you mind having your integrity ventilated in public?
No, sir. Supervisor Blevin obviously finds my conduct a more interesting subject than the advancement of integrated Imperial security. He's put a lot into it. I'm curious to hear his insights.
Dedra not only wins her confrontation with Blevin, Partagaz actually compliments her.
Imagine if everyone in this room played as loose with the rules as you.
An excellent suggestion, Blevin. I'm wondering where we'd be right now if everyone here showed the same endeavor as Supervisor Meero.
Look at how big of a deal this is for Dedra. She's deadly good at analysis, but she can hardly control her facial gestures when strong emotions arise inside of her. Partagaz recognizing her gives her the validation that she's always wanted. and the validation she never had from her mother and father. And so Partagaz's compliments reshifts Dedra's focus. She realizes that she can cross the line. She can even criticize her leaders if she is right. This starts to change her behavior. She becomes more and more bold. She's in danger of becoming Icarus. The trick that Tony Gilroy pulled on us that misled us from the very beginning of Andor is that Dedra is, from a Hollywood point of view, your typical underdog, heroine. She's one of just a few females in what clearly is a man's world. She is bold, she takes initiative, doesn't play off his politics, and is focused on the mission, unlike her peers who all fit different caricatures of corruption, incompetence, and idiocy. She also has amazing lines like this one.
I'd like to know if anyone here believes the rebellion plans its actions around the artificially constructed boundaries of our sectors.
Major Partagaz created those sectors.
As organizing principles, not personal playthings, do you really think the rebels care about the lines we draw on maps?
You think the relevance of my work has been supplanted?
Systems either change or die. Sir.
And as an audience, well, we need to root for someone in a room full of stiffs, and Dedra is the person we root for. The only problem is, while Dedra has the right stuff, she's in completely the wrong organization. We talked about this a lot in our major Partagaz breakdown video, about how he was actually a pretty good leader, especially for an Imperial. I've seen a lot of people mention in the comments how Major Partagaz's supervisor boardroom reminds them a lot of a lecture hall, where a professor bounces ideas off of students, where vigorous debate and discussion is held. This format is used in a lecture hall because the students and professors are after the truth, which is kind of ironic because the Empire really is good at hiding the truth and manipulating it. But of course, when it comes to its own security, the Empire wants to be competent, so that's why Major Partagaz's group has been pushed to the forefront. And yes, they use the tools of their enemy. Open discussion and debate with your team and a less vertical hierarchy. I know that doesn't sound like much, but for the Empire, it is groundbreaking. But when you live in a system where only results matter, failure is extremely deadly, especially if you've stepped on a lot of people's skulls on the way you're up. In some ways, you're better off being Legret than you are Dedra or Partagaz or Krennic. Because once the missions you're assigned are important enough for important people to notice, if you fail, you will die. Because remember, the Imperial system can never be wrong. If anything bad happens, surely it is because of the moral corruption of individuals who just don't have enough faith in our system. Of course, for Dedra, her pursuit of power and her desire for acknowledgement within the Imperial structure was driven by this emptiness inside of her, which means succeeding drives some deeper emotional need she has. And that's a problem. And after the events of Gorman, where first she gets choked out by her lover Cyril and then learns about his death, well, that just further destabilizes her and puts her in a very vulnerable and dangerous situation. She is no longer thinking clearly. And so when Dedra plans to carry out this raid to arrest Luthen Rael, she makes several huge mistakes. The first being inviting herself in as the main contact person to meet Luthen. It's clear that she hasn't been trained to handle these type of situations from both a physical and mental point of view. Once again, Dedra has left the world of being an analyst and is now dealing with the human side of the job, which again, she is really not good at. But let's take a step back. In the second season of Andor, at no point in time do we see her gather concrete proof that the Axis networks exist or that Luthen is behind this. The previous scene to her arresting Luthen is her hyperventilating on Gorman. So what the hell happened here? Well, I think actually somehow, because of her analytical brilliance, because her brain is so good at connecting the dots and making leaps, very accurate leaps that no one else can follow without data, I think somehow Dedra figured this out. But she doesn't have enough proof, concrete proof, to actually bring Luthen in. And so this is why she kind of goes behind everyone's back and launches this raid. After all, she's done this once, right? It was fine the last time, and Partagaz congratulated her after she got her results. Heck, this time around, she even thinks she's being clever. She brings in the Starpath unit, hoping it will bring some sign of recognition to Luthen's face. She's so focused on this ruse that there's not even any tension in the air when he brings out an ancient dagger in front of her and just hands it to her. This guy is a deadly criminal. He's killed so many Imperials, and you're gonna just let him hold a knife in front of you? This is just more proof, again, that she is too focused on proving that Luthen has access to really understand the mind of this individual. And then when they finally start trading barbs with each other, well, what Dedra spews out to Luthen is just disappointing. It's just like cut and paste Imperial propaganda.
You don't want freedom. You want chaos. Chaos for everyone but you.
It's amazing that Dedra got everything else right and somehow found Luthen without actually concrete evidence, but she gets Luthen as a person completely wrong. And this might be because Dedra has fantasized about this moment, as she said. I mean, she's put Luthen on a pedestal as much as Anakin put Padme or Cyril put her on a pedestal. She built up all of these crazy narratives in her head about who Luthen is. The obsession is clear, and she completely believes in this narrative, right? This has driven her up until this moment. And again, in her defense, it got her to the right place. The problem is, she's just not equipped to make the type of personality assessment that she's made about Luthen.
Ruin the galaxy and then run back to your ridiculous wig and little workshop.
How confident you are.
Dedra already believes she's won. She believes that by revealing the Star Path, by getting Luthen kind of to admit that he is Axis, it's all game over. She's got people waiting outside. She probably thinks that Luthen will now do everything possible to survive. She probably even thinks that he'll beg her for mercy. But of course, that couldn't be further from the truth. If you've watched any of our videos on this channel, you'll know that Luthen is one of the most selfless people in the world. He doesn't care about death. He's not afraid. And so, when Dedra closes her little Star Path unit, sighs, it's a sign that her mission is finally over. And she lets Luthen out of her sight just long enough for him to stab himself. If only Sergeant Lear had been there for Dedra, rescued her out of that Kinder Block. She would have easily made a good replacement for Clea, and maybe even more ruthless and analytical and better at running things. But this is what happens, man. This is what happens when you're a child and you are just deprived of the very things that make you human. You develop huge blind spots. And even someone as strong as Dedra Meero, who has, the ability to cope, the discipline to kind of adapt, she still is chasing something her entire life, and this gets her into a lot of trouble. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.